Welcome to What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game. There's a lot of garbage advice and misinformation out there that can leave you feeling stumped and stuck. Together, let's sift through the sea of BS and find the best ways to get healthy and stay healthy. Join the team as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan Turo, Angela Turo, and Dr. Riley Brown.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Dan.
Dr. Riley.
Hey, today we're going to be talking about nerve system support. So what the heck does that mean? We get a lot of questions about what supplements to take, right?
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this before. It's such a common question. And I think part of that is because of the pharmaceutical culture that we're in, right? Like everyone wants to take a pill, potion, lotion, hey, help me to, get through this ache or pain or ailment, whatever's bothering me, so that I can get right back to, my life. And so I think in a lot of ways, the pharmaceutical industry, the nutraceutical industry has kind of followed suit so that it makes an easy transition from, hey, I'm taking, artificial medication to now at least I'm trying to use natural ingredients, maybe, increasing the density of those, down into a little pill form. But, I think we want to get to the bottom of why would you supplement? Because we use supplements, right? Yeah. But what are common things that we do, to help our system, help our health and well-being? And it always comes down to the nervous system, right? Our nervous system controls and coordinates everything else, as we always, discuss heavily in the office. So what can we do in addition to making sure that we have, a properly functioning and motioning spine? What can we do to support the cells of our body to make sure that they're getting all the right things that they need? Does that make sense, Doc?
Yeah. I think, it's supplementing the nervous system.
There you go.
That's a good analogy. And I think we get a lot of questions like, well, what should I supplement? It's like, why? Why should you supplement? Yeah. You don't want to just supplement to supplement, pop random pills that hopefully will make a change. Like you want to find what's deficient in your life or what's deficient in your diet and kind of round that, supplement to kind of keep everything in balance. Yeah.
And so to allude to that, you're basically getting into like the first major point is what is your goal, right? There's different goals for someone who is, 18, 20, 22 years old, and maybe they're trying to, bulk up for a specific sport. Maybe it's, whether it's bodybuilding or powerlifting or, they're training, they're a collegiate athlete. Yeah. They're training for endurance. Yeah, I know you do a lot more endurance stuff with cycling and swimming when you were younger. So it's like, what are your goals? And then those young athletes, much different from the, middle-aged men and women, 40s, they've got a handful of kids. I'm speaking to you. Hi, I'm speaking to all of you out there. It's
not 40 yet.
Not yet. A couple more weeks. But yeah, it's like, got a lot of kids, stress from work, just stress from, kids events, you're constantly going, but, and you're really starting to feel the effects of that aging process. So it's like, you don't feel 20 anymore. How can you support your system as best as possible to allow you to feel a decade younger rather than a decade or two older? Yeah. And then those goals are going to be different from the, 65, 75, 85-year-old who it's like, I'm just trying to maintain function at this point. Yeah. Like I want to be able to get down on the floor with my grandchildren. I want to be able to go on a long trip with my family in a car ride and, and get to the beach and make sure that I'm able to walk up and down the beach, take a bike ride, put my pants on in the morning, those kind of things, we smile when we're younger, but like those are very, very important, that functionality as we age. Yeah. And so those are all very different, physical, activities of daily livings or health goals. And certainly, different seasons of your life, your supplementation may look different because of that.
Yeah.
So setting the stage for that, very, very important, starting off, what are your goals for your health and well-being?
Yep.
I really liked what you said though about sufficiency. What did you mean by that? Because I want you to dig down a little bit on that, and I want to go back.
To make sure things are to making sure, whether it be diet or exercise, making sure your body is sufficient enough and has the right tools to kind of recover. So I know for lifting and stuff like that, you can, not to dive into the weeds, but you can do full protein stuff. So they have all the amino acids, which amino acids are just the chemical building blocks for a protein.
Yeah.
And so you can do a whole protein supplementation, or you can break it down into certain amino acids. And so that could be a good thing for, people who are really trying to build muscle or stuff like that. They can really hunker down on, okay, I'm eating X kind of food and it has this kind of amino acids. And so making sure you're sufficient in that. Iron deficiencies, I think too, is a big thing to supplement, to make sure you're sufficient in iron, because if the iron's low, then the oxygen, throughout the body gets bad. So just making sure everything is well-rounded so you can have an optimal working, system.
Yeah. Really. Well, and, just going down to the, back to the, the cellular, right? The micro, like we're literally a collection of cells, right? 70 trillion plus cells that's estimated that make up our body. No, trust me, no scientist has actually counted them, but again, it's a large estimate based on, extrapolation from, looking things at a petri dish and how large they are and extrapolating that out to the size of a person. But so 50 to 100 trillion cells in our bodies. All of those cells need nutrients to function. Mm-hmm. And so and cells individually are, they are, the definition of like the smallest living unit, right? Yeah. And so you talk about in biology, going back to basic biology, a single cell you can have a single cell living organism. A bacteria is a single cell living organism. So it basically has, signs of life. So it takes in nutrients, it turns it into energy, and then it excretes the waste product. It reproduces. Those are all signs of life. And so that happens in our body. Those are signs of life. So just like we need to eat our food, we eat our food because then those cells, those micronutrients, the amino acids that you just mentioned, which are the building blocks to proteins, the plants are carbohydrates are, building blocks of, cellular membranes, fats as well, building into that, the cellular membrane. So like the macro and micronutrients are literally the building blocks to your cells. So imagine if you were swimming and you started getting really tired and actually started going underwater. Like, none of us want to think about this, but like if you were literally starved of oxygen, okay, the amount of pain, that would come because of that, just in the seconds before your body literally passed out. Or if you were underwater, the pain of that, that drowning, the seconds before, that's literally, you're starving for oxygen. Mm-hmm. And so take that down to the nutrient level, like the cellular level. If your cells are not getting the nutrients that they need to reproduce, energy and then, healthfully divide, then your cells are literally starving for energy. So that's, I think, when we talk about supplementation, we're talking about, is your body getting the sufficient nutrients that it needs to function healthfully? Yeah. Okay. And there's, I think, then we can get into the aspect of, well, what is healthful function versus what is like survival function? Yeah. So many of the patients that we see, right, are, they're in this fight or flight starvation, mode. They're just trying to get by day to day rather than optimally functioning. Yeah. So,
I think a big thing, just, obviously we don't do it in the office, but getting blood work done to seeing levels of deficiencies. And even in that case, like, there's one specific patient I think about, all of her numbers were great on her blood tests. she's still having all these symptoms and stuff. So we said, okay, add a little bit more, because, in theory on blood paperwork, she wasn't deficient, but her body needed more. So, even getting the blood work done, like still listening to your body if there's no true deficiencies on paper.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, because I just had this conversation about someone with Lyme disease the other day, or he thinks that he could have Lyme disease, and he wanted to go and get tested for it. And I'm like, well, those tests are so they're not very specific. There's a lot of error in them, and so a lot of times, even when you're looking at nutrients, you might be in quote unquote the normal range, but again, that is a range. So if you're on the low end of normal, that might not be optimal for your system. So whereas being on the high end of normal might be more optimal for your body. And so, not that we ever use symptoms as a sole guide to your health and well-being. I mean, testing is important too, but we have these signals and signs in our body for a reason. So if you do have low energy, if you are having difficult mental acuity, mental clarity, if you're your recovery after working out, or you're just waking up totally stiff and sore, you have all of these challenges going on, and yet your numbers are normal. Well, listening to your system and trying to get to the underlying cause of that is very, very important. And sometimes then it is, like you said, hey, maybe you just need a little bit more, or maybe you need less. Right?
Yeah, supplementation.
Because how many times I see people all the time who, they come in and it's like handfuls of supplements, right? And it's like, I'm going to take this. It's literally like they're eating a meal of supplements. Yeah. And a lot of times I will see those people will have like this big, like almost extended liver, and, this kind of like bloated belly. And a lot of times, that the supplementation that they were doing, again, when they were younger, well, if you could do the same thing for 10 years, we're in a new phase, new cycle of life. Yeah. So to revisit that, I just had this conversation with a gentleman who was talking about libido recently. And he's like, just, things just don't seem to be the same as they were, a couple years ago. And it's like, well, maybe we need to revisit that. So again, I had him take a, picture, or write down everything that he was taking. And so now we can assess, like, what are you taking? Maybe it's time to just wean off of, just give your body a break and just focus on the food that you're eating for a while, and then start to add things back in, slowly and surely, and see if that doesn't make the change. So, just like we can get addicted to medication, supplementation is the same thing, right? So I think that brings another good point, that we should discuss is, and I just asked AI this before our conversation, but cycling supplementation versus daily routine all the time. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. For me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to daily, I'm going to do it daily, but I always end up cycling, because there will be a day or two where I forget, and then that's just kind of the end of it. And then I kind of will feel off or something. I'm like, maybe I do need to start. So as much as I want to say, like, I'm a daily, with the exception of probiotics, those are daily, no question for me. But, like taking, creatine or fish oils or B complex, stuff like that, I tend to get in these moods of like, oh yeah, I'm going to take them. And then I stop, I feel fine for, a couple months. And then it's kind of back to that, like, oh, something's off. Yeah. So I would say I am more of a cycle kind of person, unintentionally
cycling. And I, honestly, I think that I unintentionally, in many ways am the same. Yeah. And I look at it, again, as human beings, we're designed to eat cyclically, right? Like we're designed, the foods that are coming out in early spring right now, if we were hunter-gatherers, foragers, or even just farmers, again, living off the land, before refrigeration, especially before refrigeration, it's like you would eat based on the harvest, right? So things that came out in early spring, from a growing season are much different than things that are coming out, middle to later summer, especially the fall harvest that, those tend to be those nutrient dense vegetables that are designed to warm your system up. The squashes, the potatoes, it's like that, late harvest and, storing up energy ready to get yourself, through maybe a lower nutrient season like the winter. And so, in a lot of ways, we're genetically programmed to eat cyclically. And so I look at, supplementation like that, and I tell people, look, it's not the end of the world. If you, are taking your amino acids or you're taking your fish oils every day, and then it's like, oh shoot, I forgot a couple of days I was traveling, I forgot to grab it, and then it's like, get back onto it. But there are also, depending on your goals, there may be times that a supplement may only be intended for, for like a short period of time, a couple weeks long. If you're doing a specific, detox, for liver, if you're trying to do a mental clarity boost, like being on certain supplements, and we can give some examples, in the comments section, but like if you're on, a specific like detox regimen, or like, trying to, even think of something as simple as bodybuilding, and they're using, a steroid cycle or combination, like, they go on that and off of that, hopefully, because you would destroy your body. Now, again, I am not for the use of,
he's been lifting.
Yeah, I've been lifting, but I am not for the use of steroids. But, you look at these guys and that's what they do. But, if you're really trying to target something specific, even something like a melatonin, like I really, my red flag starts to go up as a practitioner if you feel the need to supplement melatonin to fall asleep, or you feel the need to supplement something like a marijuana product, like if you feel the need to do that on a daily basis to achieve a certain result, then, my question starts, well, what type of miscommunication or dysfunction is going on in the body to lead you to feel that need? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, melatonin is produced by the body to help you go to sleep.
That's such a good point.
The wake sleep cycle is based, it's on the, what is it, circadian rhythm,
light,
stuff. So the body will start to produce more melatonin as it gets closer to bedtime, when the sun goes down. So if you're having to add more melatonin just to go to sleep, something's off in the nervous system, something's off with the communication to release that melatonin. So then, not only are you kind of telling your body, hey, don't worry about releasing this melatonin, I'll just supplement it. That's where you can get into trouble. Yeah, you need to look. There's a deeper dive into that.
Holy cow! And so that, talking about like down regulation, up regulation. When you talk about your cells and how they communicate and how they get energy, they literally have receptors on on the surface of the cell. We could go into a whole. I used to do classes on this and did like a whole whiteboard thing. But like the cell receptor is the receiving thing about the radio tower, right? It's receiving the signal, but then there are also things that are sending signals away, and so those are the messengers that the cell creates and can release messengers. Our immune cells can release histamines, which are communications to the surrounding cells, like a local inflammatory state that, hey, something is damaged in this area. And so they're messages that are being received and sent out. But you nailed it when you said from a regulation standpoint, and is it a necessary, essential nutrient, or is it something the body makes, right? That's essential nutrient versus non-essential nutrient. When you actually get down to the true definition, an essential nutrient is anything that is not made by the body, right?
You have to get it from outside.
You have to get it. You have to ingest it. And so like vitamin D3, is made by the body, but only in the presence of sunlight, correct? So, but the amino acids, there's 9 essential amino acids. However, I think there's like 20, I'm not a biologist. And again, 20, 21, there's like, 20 amino acids. 9 of them are essential, meaning that our body doesn't make them, but the other ones that are non-essential, the body can take the essential ones and actually create and build the non-essential amino acids. Same thing, like your B vitamins. Okay. So there's a number of essential nutrients and non-essential nutrients. So things like EFAs are called essential fatty acids. Those are primarily your omega-3, 6s, and 9s. They're called essential fatty acids because you have to ingest them because your body doesn't make them. And then once you ingest them, the body has an incredible ability to make and build off of those, building blocks. So literally, if you think of, the Lincoln logs that kids used to build with, I don't know if those are around, but again, Legos would be another great example. It's like, when you ingest something, it's like you just taken, a box of Legos and, all different shapes and sizes, and you're just dumping them into your system. And then your body starts to take those Legos and put them in place and kind of put them where they need to go for the different cells. And if they're all there, if you're giving your body the right, amount, then it can build a beautiful, healthy organism, which is you. So that's a great point. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just kind of thinking when you were talking about the essential fatty acids, and then I went back to that kind of like cycling or daily. It's like even taking omegas, the essential fatty acids and stuff. If you eat a lot of, fish or stuff like that, you probably don't need to do an omega supplement every single day. You're getting that from the fish. If you tend to not eat much fish, then okay, you might want to look into that kind of supplementation because, not only is that going to help joints, but brain function and all sorts of things. So.
And again, so like this episode is not necessarily designed like, oh, you must take this supplement, you must take this. But, I think we can at least give a broad-based example. And the other thing to consider, about the essential, right? There are some vitamins, nutrients that your body will store for a period of time. Essential fatty acids are one of those. If it's a fat-soluble, fat-based vitamin, like an essential fatty acid, vitamins A, D, E, and K, it's something you'll learn for, boards, for your board certifications. Those fat-soluble vitamins are stored in the liver. They're stored, for the body to kind of pull from that storage as it starts to feel it dwindle. Other vitamins that are more water soluble based, will be kicked out because they're very tightly regulated by the nervous system. So, if your body feels like it has too much sodium in it, this is where, people run into issue with blood pressure, right? If you ingest too much sodium, and I can tell you right off the bat, any processed food, if it comes in a box or a bag or a restaurant, it has a high level of sodium because sodium is a very strong preservative. So if you're ingesting too much sodium, well, then your kidneys will tightly regulate that and start to kick that out of your system. So if it's a water soluble based vitamin, your B vitamins are more water soluble based. And that's where, like, when you take a B vitamin, a complex or a multivitamin with a massive percentage of vitamins in it, your P literally turns, this like bright yellow, almost like neon yellow color. And that's a sign that it's like your body has way too much and it's filtering it right out. So that's a really, really good, good point for, in terms of, what do you need to, cycle. Again, fat soluble vitamins, if you take them every couple days, probably fine. Your water soluble vitamins, probably more looking at, a daily occurrence. But then again, at the end of the day, then, B vitamins, the nutrient density in a piece of chicken or, a piece of beef or a piece of organ meat, like the density of B vitamins in there is significant. And again, if you, ingest meat, which we are designed to do, there's a lot of research saying that, we should be more plant-based, but there's also a lot of research that points to, hey, there's a very high density value of nutrients in meats. They're truly complete proteins, to get the essential essential amino acids and the B vitamins that you need. So getting that dense piece of meat with a low, calorie, like basically, right, nutrient density, meaning like you have a high amount of nutrients, to the amount of calories that you're ingesting versus, low calories, low nutrients, or vice versa. So, important to recognize a lot of that, but what are some things that you might take on a daily basis for those that?
Well, we've been talking creatine. I used to do that, back just kind of like, oh, I'm lifting, I need to creatine. But now that we've been kind of doing some more research and it's kind of getting out there, the actual benefits of like, brain function, energy. So it's not just for, if you want to gain mass or you want to work your muscles really well, it's, it's good overall, mental clarity kind of creatine. Creatine's one. Magnesium's always good. I make my wife take that for sure, to try and help her sleep and stuff at night. But pre and probiotics, I think that's just gut health in general is very, very important. So making sure your gut flora is healthy and not riddled of parasites and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's really it that I would, vitamin D, but like you said, if it's summertime, you might not need it as much.
Yeah, and actually it's been tested, vitamin D3, this time of year when it's sunny outside, 10 to 15 minutes of the sun with your forearms and your legs below the knee exposed, gets you the sufficient vitamin D that you need on a daily basis. And I love to go sit out in the sun, for 15, 20 minutes over lunchtime this time of year. And again, when you go into the winter, fall, winter time, especially in the northern hemisphere, it's making sure that you are supplementing that D3, to be able to, give you proper function. So that's important. You mentioned creatine. That is something that, again, doing a lot more research on it. It used to be growing up, like, I know my parents told me like, oh, you need to watch that because there's things saying that like I could really damage your kidneys. Like that was always the first thing that anyone said if they heard you were taking creatine, like kidney damage, right? Yeah. Creatine, again, as I've done more research on it specifically, it's a natural amino, it's an amino acid found naturally in your body, or found in nature, found in muscle tissue. Yeah. And so, by eating a piece of meat, you get creatine in there. But what the studies have shown that if you are supplementing creatine, you basically help to saturate your muscles a little bit more, so then you get better performance, better recovery. But it also is one that works on brain function as well. Yeah. It's an amino acid that works on brain function. So it's actually, if you're very interested, I would challenge you to research more on creatine, specifically creatine monohydrate. And again, I've really dove back into it probably over the last month, taking about 5 to 10 grams a day for myself. And I have noticed a difference in my energy level waking up in the morning, my recovery, my muscle soreness after I'm done working out, and the following days, and just my performance when I am working out. So definitely something to consider for those. And it's men and women. It's not, you're not going to bulk up. That's, again, I think one of the myths and misconceptions out there about it. So that's definitely one. But the fish oils and then the amino acids. I don't take, I've gotten away from consuming like a protein supplement. Again, I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there about how much protein we need to consume. Mm-hmm. There's differences of opinion. Do you eat 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight or per pound of body weight? And again, I think it comes down to your goals. And then are you measuring total body weight or lean body mass, right? I'm a pretty big guy, so it's like, my total body weight is in the low to mid 200s, but like if you actually calculate my lean body mass, I'm probably in like the 170 pound range. So should I be doing my protein gram intake based off of the lean body mass or like total body mass? And because I think if you try and push, if you're especially if you're in a fat percentage range above 15 to 20% of your fat mass, again, consuming extra protein that would account for that fat mass is just going to be extra calorie for you that you don't necessarily, your body's not even going to be able to process or should process. Yeah. So, so there's a lot of factors that go into that, but really my daily routine now consists of creatine, the amino acids, the fish oils, and then I really try and get most of my B vitamins from just eating good healthy meat. Chicken thighs, fish. Your beefs, or ground meat or steak, something like that. So that's kind of what I look at, cycling wise. And then again, if you're under a lot of stress, increasing your B vitamin intake is always very, very important. So
I think, I don't know, it's not random, but the last thing, I would have to look into this more, but fillers in supplements, you have to be wary of that. Yeah. I wish I could tell you right now what to look for. I would have to look into that more, but essentially they could throw you, I think you have a photo back there of x-rays that actually have full capsulated, daily vitamins or something like that. That's just in the colon, probably won't even get touched by absorption because the fillers are just so strong, the body can't break it down. So that's something to watch out for. Yeah.
And so again, I think how something is introduced to the body is important. We've talked about that from terms of an availability standpoint. A capsule versus a tablet. A tablet is just, think of your typical medication, it's typically, just packed very, very full. You cut it in half, it's still a solid. That's a tablet. And again, that's where you're alluding to a lot of those fillers, and binders. It binds everything together. And then your body has to, basically break that highly packed form down and then get into the bloodstream. And then you move more into the, the capsules. And that's what you think of your typical fish oil. It's like a gel capsule. And then once your body dissolves that gelatin capsule, then boom, the liquid or the powder, becomes more available into your digestive system, into your small intestine. And then of course you can just take a liquid version. There's liquid versions of, vitamins and stuff. So, and a lot of it has to do with different, preferences. A lot of people are very sensitive to tablets and capsules sometimes. So, the advantage of taking something that's in a capsule form, you could technically break it open, dump it in, some of your food, or mix it in a shake and still get those ingredients without actually taking the capsule itself. But I know I'm sensitive to some of the fish oil stuff, and I'll take 3 or 4 at a time, and then it'll be 15 minutes later, and I'll be you can literally feel it, feel it break, but it's you almost have a hiccup, and it's oh, there's the oil, and that's what people call the fish burps, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's it's annoying for 1 second, but if you have healthy digestion, then boom, it's bypassing the stomach, it's getting into your system, and then it's gone in, another 10 minutes. So, it's just something to be aware of. Again, there's so much to it. So, as we always say, talk to your trusted healthcare professional. If we can, we do not claim to be experts on nutrition, but we definitely, for ourselves, have seen what has worked. For our patients, we've seen, or helped guide people into the right, steps for themselves. We do make recommendations, but again, it's all around facilitating, how to help others get healthy and stay healthy. So,
absolutely.
Awesome. Anything else to add?
No, I think we covered it all. Awesome. All-rounded.
Yeah. So if you do have questions, never hesitate to reach out to us personally. And if we can't answer the question, we're going to do our best to give you to the right resource to help you find the answer you're looking for. So as always, I'm Dr. Dan.
Dr. Riley.
See you at the next one.
Thanks.
You've been listening to another episode of What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game, with your hosts, Dr. Dan, Angela, and Dr. Riley. Brought to you by Churro Family Chiropractic. If you'd like to learn more about some of the resources mentioned on this show, or you have questions about something that was discussed, please reach out through our website at www.turofamilychiropractic.com. Remember to like and subscribe to What the Health Podcast to catch all the latest episodes and replay your favorites. Thank you for listening, and remember, we're always here to help when you find yourself saying, "What the hell?"